وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا نذير له ولا مثال له وأشهد أن سيدنا وسندنا ومولانا محمدا عبده وحبيبه ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الكرام ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. أيها المؤمنون الحاضرون، أوصيكم ونفسي الخاطئة بتقوى الله وطاعته. إن الله مع الذين اتقوا والذين هم محسنون. Dear brothers and sisters, the times that we're living in are very difficult times, especially now that we are approaching the elections. There are candidates who are running for the most important office in the country. And there are two, as it always happens, there are sometimes, or they become enemies to each other. Sometimes innocent people, they can escalate tensions without intending to do so. They can escalate in tensions and they can be caught up in troubles that they wish they would never be in. Sometimes Muslims, even though they may not necessarily have an intention of rising conflicts or rising arguments between people and arguing with them whether I go with this candidate or that candidate, they can get caught up in the middle as well. And they would regret for saying something or doing something that might have been provocative or might have been something that brought so much trouble. So what I'm trying to say during this khutbah is some preventative measures that we need to consider, especially in the time that we're living in, and for sure the place where we're living in order to avoid unnecessary trouble. I'm not saying that we should not speak for justice. I'm not saying that we should not speak our mind. I'm not saying that we should not stand for those who stand for justice, the human rights. But I'm saying that unnecessary debates, unnecessary talks, unnecessary arguments need to be shifted out or be put out in order for us to have a peace of mind and in order for us to preserve that tranquility in our hearts. We have to be positive overall. And in order to achieve that positiveness in ourselves and the people that are around us, is to always say good word. Use good words. Quran says, commands, وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي. The Quran commands Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to say to the servants of God, to say that which is the best. التي هي أحسن, that which is the best. So when we involve in conversation with people, when we generally talk, we should filter our words, we should filter our conversations, and try the best to be positive in our sayings, in our conversations. Because this will impact us positively, and it will impact, as I said, people who are around us positively as well. مثل كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. The example of the good word is like the example of a good tree. The roots of this tree are deep inside the earth and firm, while the branches are spreading out in the sky. And it gives constantly fruits. تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها. It gives these fruits constantly to people so they can eat. It gives the fruits to birds so the birds they can eat. It plays a positive role for the environment as well. So it has so many benefits for the creatures. Just one single tree. One single word, one single positive sentence that you may utter, you may say to people, it can be something to encourage them. It can be something to inspire them. It can be something to stop them from doing something wrong. It can be a command to do something good. It can be a push to do something better with their lives. So we are highly encouraged and we are commanded to say good words. One of the things or one of the matters that destroys the good deeds, it brings negativeness to you as an individual and to the people who are around you, is argument, lying. Often, in times like these, people, they lie in order for them to feel victorious, in order for them to feel as they know what they're saying and the other person doesn't know. Or in order for me to win the conversation, I gotta throw a lie out there. And this is something that is very destructive. And I don't need to tell you about verses in the hadith of Prophet ﷺ where there is a mentioning of stopping lying. But people, they do. As a matter of fact, majority of the people, unfortunately, they do lie, even for little things. In our tradition, we are instructed not to lie, even jokingly. Even jokingly, we're not recommended to lie. Prophet ﷺ, according to the narrations, there are narrations that say that Prophet did not even lie even when he was joking. Remember when a woman comes to him, an old woman? Old women, they don't go to paradise. And then she became very upset at that moment. He was joking with her. And then later on he told her that when you go to paradise, you're going to be in a young age. But he didn't lie to her, even though he was joking. But as I said, the moment he saw her that she was changing right away, he told her the thing the way how it is. So that is something that we have to take into consideration. The second thing is arguing. People argue for nothing. Whether it is between themselves as friends, whether it is between the couples, they argue and they argue and they argue. They don't stop arguing. Why? In order for my word to be superior over your word, in order for me to prove my point, I will go so deep into a conversation, into arguing and be upset with you and try, to defend my point so I can win the conversation. And of course, when you do that, a shaitan gets in. Devil gets in. And he starts playing around with people. He says, all right, so you have come very close to me. You're not inside yet. But I'm going to open the door and I'm going to give you a push so you can get in. That's what happens when you start arguing. And I'm not saying that we should never argue. There are some times when you need to argue. But when do you argue? When you know that there is something positive coming out of it. When you know that this is going to be for yourself, to satisfy your inner self, so you can say that I won the conversation. Or to serve another negative interest of yours or somebody else who is behind you, then that becomes sinful. And that becomes an open door for Satan to walk in and to start playing around with you and perhaps other people who are around you. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in a hadith that is narrated by Sayyidina Anas bin Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in the Jami' of Imam at-Tirmidhi, and this is considered to be hadith Hasan. It's an authentic hadith, where Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he is saying that I promise to the one who stops lying a house in the outskirts of paradise. Why? This is a part of the character of so many individuals out there. As I said, it's something big. Many people have this. They lie a lot. Recognizing this fact, Prophet is saying, alayhi salatu salam, if you stop lying, I promise to that person a house in the outskirts of paradise. If someone stops arguing, even though that person may be right, I promise to that person a house right in the middle of paradise. Lying, arguing. Look at the reward that you get when you control yourself. And number 3, he says, the person, وَمَنْ حَسَّنَ خُلُقَهُ, the one who betters his or her morals, ethics, manners, behaviors, I promise to that person a house and the highest levels of paradise. In another occasion, and this is in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, there is this hadith, famous hadith, where Prophet alayhi salatu salam is sitting, and right next to him there is Abu Bakr. And then right next to Abu Bakr there is another person who is using bad words towards Abu Bakr and abusing him verbally. Abu Bakr was the closest friend of Prophet ﷺ, was somebody to be followed by all the believers, the first Amir al-Mu'mineen, somebody who had the greatest manners and morals. And as he is hearing, as Abu Bakr is hearing this other person abusing him verbally, using all kinds of words, Abu Bakr is being quiet. He is being patient. And then Prophet ﷺ is seen to be smiling. The narrator says that he was smiling. Like if somebody, you're sitting right next to a friend of yours, right? And all of a sudden that friend of yours gets another person abusing him verbally and all of that. You make a stand right there and you know. Of course, if that's a good friend of yours. But Prophet ﷺ was smiling. And then later on, upon hearing this person continuing with his abuse, Abu Bakr had enough. He said, you know what? I'm going to answer him. And he started responding back to that person. And then Prophet ﷺ stood up and left. When Abu Bakr saw that Prophet was leaving, he was very concerned. He was his beloved, the closest friend, the Prophet of God. So he said to the Prophet, he said, Ya Rasulullah, what happened? You left. Prophet ﷺ, he said, during that time, when he was abusing you verbally, God placed an angel who was praying for you. And he was responding back to that person. So the abuse would go back to that person. And when you decided to respond back to him, that's a time when a devil took angel's place. And I do not sit in the same place where devil sits, he said. And the hadith goes on and it continues. But what this hadith tells us, teaches us, is that we should give up arguing and we should stop sometimes answering to those people who may even be abusive towards us. Allah will protect the person. Even in this hadith, the hadith continues and says that God will protect the person who forgives the oppressor. God will protect the person who forgives the oppressor. And I'm not saying here today that we should always forgive the oppressors and let them do whatever they want. And Prophet did not make this case as a standard case to always do this. But whenever there is a possibility, whenever we are able to forgive the others, as a matter of fact, most of the time we should forgive the others when they abuse us. This is the message of Islam. We're not unaware, we're not heedless from those who are trying to harm us. We stand for ourselves, we stand for our dignity, we stand for our honor, for our wealth, for our lives, for sure. But there are many times when we can forgive. There are many times when we can avoid confrontation. But you were not man enough, man. Did you hear that guy? He was just using this word against you and da-da-da and da-da. There is an angel right there. Knowing the fact that there is an angel who is praying for you, that's enough. That's enough. Allah has placed somebody who is stronger than you to defend you. So is it going to be the defense of God better for you, or your own defense against your enemy better? Right? So we have to, as I said, we have to utilize our mind, evaluate situations, and recognize that most of the times, arguments, confrontations, responding back to individuals can just simply be avoided, and you're not going to be a less of a man. You're going to be somebody who is actually following the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ closely. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows His mercy, His blessings, His forgiveness upon all of us, and He makes us from those who are steady on His faith, and He makes us from those who are quick to forgive, and He makes us from those who have the best manners and morals. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.